the top news stories today has to do with BuzzFeed's decision to publish a leaked document, 35-page document, detailing Trump's possible ties to Russia and the potential of Russia having some pretty dirty information on Donald Trump that they could use against him in the future. Now, it is important to understand, and BuzzFeed did report this, none of the allegations in these leaked documents or the leaked document have been verified. No one has corroborated them. They even said themselves that it's potentially unverifiable. But nonetheless, they published this information, and as a result, a lot of people are questioning whether or not there was an issue with journalistic ethics, okay? So the news website posted the unredacted documents on Tuesday, just 10 days before Trump's inauguration, with a warning that the contents contained errors, a lot of misspellings, and were unverified and potentially unverifiable. Also, the documents reportedly compiled by a British former intelligence agent alleged that the Kremlin was cultivating, supporting, and assisting Trump for at least 5 years. Okay, so how did this all come about? It didn't start with BuzzFeed. Now, there were a number of news organizations that received the same document but decided not to report on it, not to leak it, not to do any of that. The Guardian is an example of that. They decided, we can't verify any of these claims, any of these allegations, so therefore we're not even going to mess with it. New York Times also did not publish anything about it. It all started with CNN, though. CNN reported that America's intelligence chiefs had given Trump and Barack Obama a 2-page summary of the reports last week. CNN and The Guardian also reported that Senator John McCain had delivered a copy to the FBI Director James Comey last month, but withheld the document's most eye-opening details, okay? So I want to be absolutely clear. These media organizations did not publish any details. It was very vague. It was just basically talking about how there is a document that exists and top officials are being briefed on it. Okay. At that point, BuzzFeed gets involved because BuzzFeed has the same document. BuzzFeed News then starts publishing the full document so that Americans can make up their own minds about allegations about the president-elect and have circulated at the highest levels of the U.S. government. Okay, so why is this such a big deal? There have been, a lot of news stories about how Russia has been involved in the election, how Russia has been working to influence the election. Well, there were some damning accusations here. Again, none of them verified. And so Donald Trump is pissed, okay? I did not mean to use that. That was not,
sure.
Hold on.
Yellow journalism here.
Okay.
There's a lot of leaking going on.
I actually didn't mean that. So Golden Gate is a hashtag that was trending on social media as a result of this, okay? So I'm gonna read you the part of it that a lot of people are latching onto so you kind of understand why this is problematic, okay? So according to this leaked document, Trump allegedly hired sex workers to defile a bed in a presidential suite at Moscow's Ritz-Carlton Hotel where the Obamas, whom he hated, had slept. To desecrate the space, the documents claim Trump made the sex workers that he hired perform a golden showers, I love how they clarified, urination show, on the mattress in front of him. Okay, again, there's no verification of this, so don't publish this kind of stuff, right? Because whether it's verified or not, certain people are just going to run with it. And so the damage is already done. Telling Americans, hey, here's a leaked document, you decide for yourself, is not doing your job, and it is unethical. I don't like Donald Trump, but I do believe in journalistic ethics. And I think that it's also in the best interest of BuzzFeed to follow suit with journalistic ethics because that leads to more credibility, more trust amongst your readers. So I don't know, your take on this, guys.
Well, I do want to make a distinction. So this might be a part of that 2-page summary. Those things happened yesterday, both of those things, but I don't know that it's even been implied that this is the only thing that was included in that 2-page summary.
Yeah.
And the CIA apparently believes that the things included in that 2-page summary are actual information that they might have about him. And this was apparently unverifiable, which would imply that this is not the thing that they're talking about. That's the only thing I would say there.
Okay. Do you, Lori, as an award-winning journalist, do you agree or disagree with BuzzFeed's decision to publish this information?
Well, I certainly think it's important that they clarified that it was unverified and unverifiable, and that's that's a break with the recent tradition of just banging out stories, no matter what rumors they're based on, unsubstantiated stuff. But I think what was most interesting was Trump's reaction today, where he started. I mean, my goodness, I watched it this morning. It was amazing because any other politician that had given that kind of a performance, that would have been the end of his career. I mean, really, shambling all over the place, not making any grammatical sense, never mind actual answering questions. But there was that point where he started pointing at journalists and yelling at them, "You're fake news, and telling people that BuzzFeed would suffer the consequences.
That's right. Shutting Jim Acosta down when he simply wanted to ask a question. And by the way, Donald Trump specifically was vicious towards CNN when CNN wasn't the publication or wasn't the news organization that published what you're most upset about.
Yeah, it was BuzzFeed.
It was BuzzFeed. So I don't know if he's mixing up the two. I don't know what's really going on.
Or intentionally mixing them up when he understands about
He's intentionally mixing this stuff up. Look, this is whether or not Trump has direct ties to Russia. He is certainly playing from the Russian playbook of how to deal with the media, how to deal with the press. Because if you read and look into anything the Russian strategy for dealing with the news is not to just, not to just say, oh, this is untrue and put out counter-propaganda. It's to distort and discredit the entire concept of news. So this is a chance, and there will be many more chances for Donald Trump to just declare that nothing is true, nothing can possibly be verified, pointing at CNN and saying you're fake news. That doesn't mean the same thing as what he's saying it means. But he's just saying he's discrediting not just journalists but the entire concept of the press. And that is very, very damaging. Yeah. And I do think the press itself has a case to answer in that.
Absolutely.
I think publishing stories irresponsibly is one of the things that's led to this climate of mistrust. But Trump has capitalized on that. He has capitalized on that by kind of exploiting an industry in crisis.
You just made me think of this from a perspective that I hadn't previously thought of. So by acting irresponsibly, which I do believe that BuzzFeed did in this case, you give him more, fodder. You give him more avenues in which he can attack legitimate news sources, right? And so I worry about that.
Although, to be fair, he's going to do that regardless.
He is going to do that regardless, but at least in this case, there's actually evidence that he can use to his benefit. Whereas before, he would just make statements and there would never be any evidence to it. In this case, they did something wrong, and they shouldn't have done it. I don't know why they made that decision. Look, we get on CNN all the time when they're like, we report, you decide. Both sides are equal, whatever, you guys figure it out for yourself. No, that's not what a journalist does. A journalist tries to do fact-checking and figure out which side is lying, maybe both sides are lying, whatever it is. You're supposed to be the truth seeker.
Exactly, and what the press has become at the moment is it's discrediting the idea that there is objective truth at all. And this is the idea that what's important is what people decide is true rather than what actually is true. Can we get back to Piggate? Because this does actually remind me of the wonderful day in December 2015 when it was revealed that maybe, very possible, there was a slight chance in a book authored by Lord Ashcroft, who doesn't like David Cameron, our former Prime Minister, saying that, I think the line was, in his university days, David Cameron may at one point have placed an intimate part of his anatomy into the mouth of a. And the news went crazy. And the thing about this is how fake news works. And it's not just people on the right who are susceptible to this. I mean, I wanted that story to be true so badly. I mean, there was no evidence for it. The Prime Minister put out a denial, but it felt like it ought to have been true, and that's kind of what mattered at the time. It may not have been true, but it felt like it ought to have been true, and that's the danger. There's so many stories coming out which people gravitate to, not because they are true, but because they feel like they should be true, and that's exactly what Trump does.
Yeah, and look, I think it's really hard for people who despise Trump, myself included, to be given this type of news story and not believe it, right? But I think you have to be a logical person. You have to step back and say, these are not verified claims. And if they're not verified, you don't have sources that corroborate them, they should not be reported. You smear someone when you do that. The damage is already done. Once it's out there, the damage is done. So.
Although again, I think it's ridiculous that the people that are, first of all, I consider this to be a case where they shouldn't have released it. It's not a case of fake news though, because they specifically make sure that you don't believe it's true. People aren't getting on Breitbart for saying that 1,000 Muslims burned down a church, which is totally untrue. They could have tried to verify that. Really easy, just read a report from Germany where they say it happened. It didn't happen. Are you attacking Breitbart over this? Probably not. And look, a lot of people were joking about it online. That's true. That's not the same as saying that it's true. Check my Twitter history.
Yep.
I joked about it 50 times. I also said from the very beginning, it has not been verified. It's probably not true. It is, however, hilarious.
So,
and wait, one other point.
Go ahead.
Just because I find it very funny that Donald Trump is saying you're fake news for reporting this, when this is a guy who on a weekly basis would retweet whatever white racist conspiracy theory he wants, something about Ted Cruz's father being involved in an assassination, charts that are totally made up, and when criticized for that says, what do I know? It's on the internet. You decide.
Exactly.
Well, if that's your standard for spreading news, then BuzzFeed did exactly the right thing, according to you, Donald Trump.
That's right.
Yeah, which is, it brings us to an interesting ethical question, right? Because what if, I really hope this isn't the case, but what if the only way to beat people like Trump is to play them at their own game and absolutely disregard the truth? Maybe that's the case now. Maybe that's what media outlets should be doing.
Think so.
No, I hope not. I hope not.
Yeah.
But what if, what if truth itself as a standard is becoming eroded? I think that's the thing to guard against right now.
I agree with you that that's the thing to guard against right now. But I think the media in general has played every part of this election and Donald Trump's, soon-to-be presidency wrong because, for instance, it's been nearly 6 months since he's had a press conference. He finally had a press conference today. And part of the reason why he got away with not having a press conference is because he would tweet and the media would comment on his tweets. Like, that was good enough. Okay, 140 characters, now we can do a news story. No. I mean, it would have been much more effective if there was some sort of rise against what Donald Trump was doing in that case. And you know what? Your tweets are insufficient. We are not going to report what your statements are. I know that's difficult. We're guilty of that as well. But there needs to be, we've moved so far away from journalistic ethics that I just worry about what the future holds. I don't want to play his game.
Exactly.
But I do want to be strong and hold power accountable, whether it's Donald Trump, a Democratic official. I don't care. It's just important for us to do our jobs and not to discredit ourselves by just putting unverified information out there. Now, Donald Trump did respond to this immediately. He wrote fake news, a total political witch hunt. And then Ben Smith,
But you gotta love, by the way, a president communicating in all caps on Twitter.
Yeah.
he's a child. Like,
Well, that's
we know
what
that
Lincoln
already.
would have done.
Yeah. And then Ben Smith, who is BuzzFeed's editor-in-chief, has defended their decision to put that leaked document out there. He writes, publishing this document was not an easy or simple call, and people of goodwill may disagree with our choice, but publishing this document reflects how we see the job of reporters in 2017 dossier. Yeah.
I wouldn't have put that last part, because people don't think this is a good idea.
No.
So if that's how you see it, that seems
That's
bad.
not a good sign. You're
Yeah.
continuing to discredit yourself.
The only other point I want to make is I want to agree with you about a general point that you're making, is that I do see Trump's recent move and the enthusiasm that his online troll army has backed him up in attacking the media is the next phase in the destruction of the very idea of an objective fact. It started in the sciences. They don't believe that scientists can find out anything about the natural world. You can't just like measure how much carbon's in the air to figure out if climate change might be happening theoretically. So you denigrate experts and academics and say that there is no scientific truth that can be found. And the next step is there is no journalistic truth. Everything is whether I think or feel that something is true.
Yep.
There are no facts that can be independently checked. That's why they're attacking PolitiFact and Snopes and all those organizations. They don't want there to be facts.
Facts are uncomfortable and awkward. Feelings are much easier to go for.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, that's what the Democrats were very slow to realise during the election
Seems like
season.
Yep. By the way, the tweets were hilarious, and I don't know. Can I read a few of them?
Oh, yes.
Just real quick.
These tweets are unverified.
Okay, one person tweeted, this is graphic 8. Hey Donald, you're in my thoughts. Okay. He's known for real estate debt, but Trump secretly loves liquidity.
Oh.
That's pretty good.
And then
Well, that deserves more
finally,
than 14.
this is my favorite. Can this be true? Depends.
You don't want to sign up for membership?
Wrong.
You're going to love membership. tytnetwork.com/join.